recording in progress. Awesome. Okay, well, welcome again. This session is supposed to last 2.5 hours. We know that that is a long time. So we have going to build in one little break here at about 1 hour and 15 minutes and setting a timer. Just press start there so that you have time to think through what we've shared with you, so that you have time to use the restroom if you need to, get a drink, stand up for a little bit, ask us some questions in the Q&A, all of that good stuff. So we just wanted to let you know that we will build that in, and then we hope that we'll have some time for just questions at the end too. This is our first time doing this type of training on Canvas, so we are we have it mapped out of what we'd like to talk about, but we're not 100% sure how long everything is going to take. So please bear with us on that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we mention here is that that it's a lot moving to a new platform. Erin and I both used Google Classroom for a long time. I used it for 6 years. I'm a Google certified trainer, so I've trained people on Google Classroom for many of those years. So we invested a lot of time in the spring helping our staff move to Google Classroom, so we understand that this is a big switch. So we just wanted to start off with a little bit of the why that we're moving to a new platform for the fall. Obviously, our situation with school this year is very unique. We have a lot of students that are moving to 100% virtual, and we also have in the back of our minds, I know everybody does, that there's a possibility that we all could be virtual at some point. We just don't know. So one of the main reasons that our district picked Canvas is just because it can do a lot more. So this is just a good visual I wanted to share with you of the options that Canvas has that Google Classroom does not. So in order to be prepared for that 100% virtual setting for the kids that chose that, or for the possibility that we might end up there at some point, they wanted to make sure they had a platform that filled in the gaps of what Google Classroom can't do. Because as much as I love Google Classroom, and I do, it does have its drawbacks, especially when you're trying to teach 100% virtually. So that is really the why. And if you know people in other districts around the area or even around the United States, there are a lot of other districts that are in the same boat as us that are using Canvas this year and did not in the past. So there's a lot of good Facebook groups and places that you can join where you can get some extra support and help with that as well. All right, so that's kind of our why. And then we also wanted to make sure you know that what we're telling you is what we know to be true at this point in time. There are a lot of things that are kind of changing right now. Sometimes it seems daily or even by minute. So we're going to do our best to share the information that we know at this point. Just keep in mind, whether you're watching this now or recorded, that some things might change between now and then. But what we're covering in this session are just the basics of how to use Canvas in general. So most of this information should not change because it's just showing you around the platform itself. All right. Another thing that we want to remind you of, I know it seems like we're giving a lot of background here, but I think that's important, is that you don't have to know everything about Canvas to be ready for day one. Because it is a bigger platform, because it has all those green check marks and does things that Google Classroom can't, that means there's more to learn about the program, but it doesn't mean that you need to know everything. So we're going to be focusing on what are the most important things that you need to know to be ready for day one. Erin and I and all of the other elementary trainers, we are still learning things about Canvas every single day. So that's why I said at the beginning that it could even be that you ask us a question, we're like, well, I'm not sure if Canvas does that, but we will investigate and find out. As far as training materials, I just wanted to remind you that JB sent everybody this website that has the links that you joined this morning. It also has some training materials. So if you go to the session recording and materials, you can get to Canvas levels 1 and 2 which are folders in a shared drive that have documentation of what we've been talking about this morning, and then levels 3 and 4 for this afternoon. So we're going to be working within Canvas itself because I want to show you it in real time, but there are a lot of training materials that you can go back and look at, and it's broken down by by area. So like level 1, there's a lot of we broke it down by topics so that you could go and say, okay, I already understand how to get into Canvas, but I still don't understand what a module is. So you can go look through the training materials and just get what you need. All right. Erin, is there anything else? Jump in if there's anything else that you can think of that I need to mention before we get started here. And I've told Erin to jump in at any time if there's a question that's being brought up that she wants to present to me, or if she wants to answer herself, because Erin knows quite a bit about Canvas as well. We both have dove in into the deep end the last few weeks, so she can pop in at any time to help us out or to clarify something that might need to be clarified. All right, so let's get started at the dashboard. So how did I get here? If you are signed into your school account, if you're signed into Google Chrome and you have your little icon or picture up here in the corner, if you go to this fz.k12.mo.us bookmarks folder, you will see one of the options is FCSD Canvas. And when you click on that, that is going to take you to what is called your dashboard. One thing that is important is that this is also going to be the screen that students come to when they sign into their Google accounts. So those above us were adamant that they did not want us using Symbaloo this year. They want all students going to the dashboard when they sign in. Their Google account will also sign them into Canvas. So they won't have to do a separate sign in to Canvas. Signing into the computer itself and their Google account should also sign them into Canvas at the same time. So I wanted to show you around a little bit first along this left-hand side. We call this the global navigation bar. These are things that apply to all of your courses. And then within each course itself, you also have specific course settings that we'll take a look at as well. But let's start here on account. So you can see I've added a profile picture here, so we'll show you where that comes in. So here you have things that are true for all of your classes where you can set things. One of the things that you may want to take a look at are your notification preferences. So you can decide how often and what kind of notifications that you want to receive. So you can see here, this check mark is notify me right away, send a daily summary, send a weekly summary, or do not send me anything. So you can decide if you want things to send to you by your email, and I believe this is populated through Fort Zumwalt, so I don't think you need to put that in there. You can also decide if you want push notifications where it like pops up on your screen letting you know. But this is some place where you can decide from the beginning, and this is true for all of your courses. So you're either turning it on for all your courses or for none of them. So I have, as you can see, I have a few things check marked here to notify me right away. So like if I receive an invitation to a course, if someone invites me to a course, I have it checked off that it will email me immediately if someone invites me to a course, that type of thing. So just something for you to take a look at and for you to decide if you want to make any changes there to your notifications. The next thing is the profile, and this is where you see here, if I hover over here and I click on the pencil, that's where it's going to let me change my profile picture. You'll have to have some kind of picture downloaded to your computer that you can then upload here to do so. The files are just any files that you have through any of your classes. You probably don't have all that stuff that I do because I've added a lot of content, but this lets you manage anything that you've uploaded to any of your courses. And then if you have things you've uploaded to a specific course, you can get to that within your course as well. Some of these things like redirect tool and QR code, don't really need to worry about those right now. And then you have some basic settings as well. This will just show you some things that the district has pushed out that integrate with Canvas. So the settings within each class or within each course that you have are more important for you to mess with than these general settings. Most of these are set to what you need them to be already. So really the notifications and the profile are the two areas that you may want to look at before school begins. All right, and then I mentioned the dashboard. So that has any courses that you are enrolled in or that you have created. One of the things that I think will be really helpful for you is to create your own pretend course. You can make as many as you want. I have quite a few that I have created to mess around with. And I've practiced copying content from one to the other. I've practiced making pages and assignments and all that kind of stuff. So these are all courses that I either created or that I was added as a teacher to for now. But when it comes to the SIS integration, that is going to get pushed to you. So your courses that you teach in SIS, like if you are a classroom teacher, you're going to have a reading course, a writing course, a word study course. If you're a specialist teacher, you're going to have kindergarten, first grade, second grade, that type of thing. So those will automatically get pushed to you when the SIS import happens. I asked Nick yesterday when he thought that might happen. He says, give me at least a week. So I don't have a more definitive answer for you on that. I think it will depend too on when all of the schedules and class lists and everything are made. But the nice thing here that's a benefit over Google Classroom is that you won't have to bring your kids in manually and invite them. They won't have to type in a code, but that will happen automatically. The thing that makes it a little bit trickier is that kids are in quite a few courses within SIS. So when they come to this dashboard, they're going to see every course that they're enrolled in. So that would include PE and music, that would include reading, writing, science, social studies, all of those. So that's why as a teacher, you're going to want to make sure that whatever image that you have set for your course is very visual, something that kids can look at and easily be able to find. And you can also on your dashboard hide courses that you are enrolled in, but you don't want to view on this main page. So you're going to do that here. So when I click on courses, these are the courses I've chosen to put onto my dashboard. But if I click on all courses, if I click on all courses, you're going to see that there's more courses listed here than there were on my dashboard. And that's because only the ones that I clicked on and got the little star next to are the ones that I actually want to be on my dashboard. So that's something that we can start with at the beginning of the school year. And I know the elementary technology teachers talked about helping with this as well. So you can talk to them about what their plans are. But we are planning on only having courses on the dashboard that the students actually need. So if they are, a face-to-face student and the PE teacher isn't using Canvas at all, that could be a course that doesn't come up on their dashboard that we choose to hide. It will always be listed though in their all courses. So anytime you want to view everything or change what you want on the dashboard, you go to courses, all courses to do that part of it. If you want to create a pretend course, this is also where you do that. So if I click on here, I'm just going to call this pretend course, and I'm going to click on create course. And then it's going to take me within my pretend course that I have made. So now if I go to courses and all courses, you can see here I now have this pretend course that I just made. So I can then do whatever I want with it. There's no students in it, so I can play around with it however I want, and it's not going to mess anything up for me. Now, if you notice here, if I go back to my dashboard, since I added that as a new course, it does automatically push it to your dashboard. So you could always go back and uncheck that star if you didn't want to see it on your dashboard. You'll notice too, it says unpublished courses. That just means that if there were students enrolled, that they would not be able to get to that content. So in order for a course to be visible to the students that are enrolled in it, the course does have to be published. Now, when you are playing around with the course, it really doesn't matter if you publish it or not. The only time you may want to publish it is if you add some pretend, students, like I've added my own children to a couple of my classes. They don't know that, but I have to play around with things. But you don't have to publish it if you're just playing around with the course itself. Okay. So this is the view within a course, and you'll see here that I have a bunch of things along the side here. Some of those things have the little slash with the I, and some of them do not. So let me explain what that means. These things are things that are currently turned off from student view. So when we're thinking about elementary, we want to make sure that our navigation on this side here is as minimal as possible. Because we want to not give students more things to click on than what they need. That's really important, we know, especially with our younger students, even with the older ones too. So what we can do is we can change that down here at the settings. So this is the settings for just this course. Each course has to be set up with what you want students to view along the side. So if you're thinking as a classroom teacher, you're going to have reading, writing, math, social studies, all of those. That means then that you're going to want to go into each of those courses and set up what you want students to be able to view within those courses. So if I click on settings, you'll see here that the first thing that pops up across the top are course details. This is where you choose that image that goes on the main dashboard. So when I had the little picture of me in front of a computer, that is where I placed this image here. So if I click on choose image, I have two options. I can either upload an image that I've downloaded to my computer, or I can search Unsplash. These are basically royalty free, which means they're free for everybody that you could find. So let's say I wanted to do a classroom. I could find a picture of a classroom, and then I could make that image. So my suggestion would be, if you're a classroom teacher or specialist, just really make sure for our elementary kids that you make this as visual, as possible. So if you can put a picture of yourself there, if you can, put a big music symbol if you're a music teacher, or a computer symbol if you're a computer teacher, whatever you can do for that image to make it easier for students to know where to go when they get to the dashboard is going to be the best option. And then if I want to save that, one of the things that you'll notice with Canvas is you need to do more saving. On Google, a lot of those things save automatically as you are working on them. That is not the case as much with Canvas. So if there's a save button, make sure that you always click on save. In this case, it's update course. All right, so now if I were to go back to the dashboard, you can see that this has been the image that's been set here. All right, so I'm going to go back into this course and go back into my settings. All right, you will not have, if you are a regular classroom teacher, you're not going to have different sections. This is where if you are a specialist teacher, all of your first grade classes will get put together as one course. All of your second grade classes will get put together as one course, so that if you're assigning something to your first graders, you can assign it to all of them at the same time. So if you have 3 classes or 4 classes of first grade, you're assigning it to all of them at once. But for classroom teachers, you're going to have it as separate courses. So you have homeroom, reading, writing, and so forth. So you won't have anything under this sections area. The next thing, this is where you can drag and drop for students. So these are things that students will be able to see right now. And these are things that are disabled for students to see right now. So if you don't want all of those things across the side, let's say, for example, I'm not going to be doing any discussions with my class, so I'm going to drag that down here. And just because it's not on the navigation, just because it's not here for students to click on, doesn't mean you can't have those kind of lessons. So I can still assign a Nearpod lesson. I can still assign an assignment, but it won't, I'll be assigning it within the units that I create. It just means that it's not going to be a button here on the side for students to click on. It doesn't mean they won't be able to do those kinds of assignments or use those tools. but there's a lot of things here that students don't need to be able to see across the side. And remember, this is per course, so make sure once you decide what you want students to be able to see on the side that you do that for each course. Notice too here, there is a save button, so make sure you click on that so that those changes are made. Now you can see here that I have fewer things that are set up across the side for students to be able to see. All right. Apps is just showing you extra apps that have been installed into Canvas. So our district has pushed all of these to us. And that means that those types of apps will open up within Canvas itself. So for example, with Nearpod, and there's trainings that I'm doing on Nearpod later this week, for students to be able to do a Nearpod lesson, it means they can do it within Canvas without having to leave the Canvas platform because it has an integration with Canvas itself. And that is another area where Canvas does a better job than Google Classroom, where you can do things without actually leaving Canvas. The same thing is true with Flipgrid. You can add Flipgrid as an app, and students can do a Flipgrid within their Canvas page without ever leaving Canvas. So it looks like Nearpod is open within Canvas itself. All right, so those are some of your app settings. Erin, yes.
Oh, you saw me unmute myself.
I heard a little click there, so I was like, oh, she's on.
I just, if you could just in the dashboard, can you explain how the naming system will come over and like why that image is important and how the students can actually rename it, but when we do it, they don't see it kind of thing?
Okay. So, and I will do my best on what I know to be true at this point. So the naming comes in through SIS itself. So it's going to be however it's coded into SIS is how that name is going to come through. So these are all pretend courses. So I named them, or the person who added me to that course is the person who did the naming of that course. And then so that this name might have, if students are in a homeroom for first grade, for example, it might have kind of a little jumble of numbers and letters, and homeroom will be on there. So that's why this image is going to be really important, because you can direct students, even if the lettering here is a little confusing for students, you can direct them to click on a particular picture. You also can give classes a nickname as well. But that is something where we have found that if we change it on the teacher end, it doesn't automatically change it on the student end. So students, you could help students to come in and to give it a different name. So see, that changed the name here, but that is only going to change it on my end, not necessarily, or not on the student end. So if you wanted to take time that first week and help students do that, you can. The only thing you have to keep in mind is they might then choose to name it some things that they shouldn't, and you have to keep an eye on that. So I'm always a little wary of showing students things that they don't really need to know. So that's just something that you'll have to keep in mind. But, you know, as a computer teacher, if I can just say on your dashboard, click on the, Bitmoji of me with the computer, that's going to be probably the easiest way for students to get to my course. So just making this a very visual image where I can quickly say, click on the blue laptop, or click on the picture of me, click on the crayons. Any way that you can make that very visual will be helpful. And then as classroom teachers, the plan is for students to go in always through their homeroom course. So you could actually hide reading, writing, social studies, and such from the dashboard. Remember, they're still enrolled in that course. It's not like you're taking them out of the course. You're just not making it show up on that main dashboard screen. So, and we'll show you that. That's more of a level 2 that we will get to, but we will show you how that we can make that work in the elementary setting so that they can just go into their homeroom class and it's connected to all of their other classes. And that just involves some linking that's a little bit past where we want to get for this very beginning part. Erin, does that answer the questions that people were asking, you think, or is there anything you want to add to that?
Yes, no, that was perfect. It was a lot for me to type, so I figured it would be better if you just explained it and showed
No,
them.
that's great. Yes, because you can show them at the same time. I appreciate it.
Okay. I did just have a question about the district pushing the pages and or like the content. We do not know when we will be getting that, correct? It's still in the works.
Yes, so there is, and let me actually talk about this by talking about the commons here. So one of the options that you have along the side here that's true, and this applies for any class. Remember, this is global navigation. So this is for any of your classes, is the commons. And a commons is an area where content can be shared. So if people in other districts have chosen to share information with everybody, you can actually search for things here that then you can see if anybody has created. So one of the ways they might do the content is by putting it in the comments and having you find it and import it, which we will do this afternoon at the next level training. I'll show you where I'll just search mine here. So I put out here into the comments a elementary homepage templates to help you get started on elementary homepages. And so this afternoon, we'll go into more of how to get that from the commons and bring that into your own course. There is another option that district is looking at, which is called blueprint courses. And a blueprint course means that instead of you going to the commons and pulling that information into your class, that they're able to look at the information and push it into your class. So let's say you're a third grade teacher, they can go and say, all right, all of the classes that are coded third grade reading, we're going to push the content we've created into the third grade reading course. That is what they're hoping that they're going to be able to do. They're still learning more about blueprint courses. I know Nick has another meeting with another district this week where they're going to try to get more details about how this district has done that. So I think that they would like to be able to push the content into your course instead of you having to go to the commons to pull it out. But that is one of those details that they are still working on. So I don't have a more definitive answer for you than that. Either way, you'll be able to get to the content that our teachers that have been working on virtual content have been creating. They have about a quarter's worth of content created for every grade level and every subject area that any teacher can use, whether you're a virtual teacher or not. So, which is awesome. And I know their lessons, I worked with them as they were creating lessons. I worked with them about 6 days. I know they've been working longer than that. So we'll just have to wait and see the method in which the district is able to put that out to us. Erin, does that answer? Can I continue on, or is there anything more you want me to say about that?
You get it, girl. You're doing awesome.
All righty. Okay. Next thing then, I'm going to go ahead and go into one of my pretend courses that I created. All right. So when you have created a pretend course, your homepage is automatically set to what we call the module page, and we'll talk about what a module is here. So one of the things that I want to do is go along this side here and talk to you about what each of these things mean and how you can use them in your class. And then I have some examples of different things. So I have an example of a page. You're seeing an example of an announcement right here. I have an example of assignments and stuff like that so that we can look at them each individually and learn what they mean and then see some examples of each of them. So on your homepage, you can, if this is like a reading page or a writing page, if it's not a homeroom page and you're a classroom teacher, you could just leave it set up to your modules. You also have the option here if you want to make this a more specific page. You then can change that here. So I clicked on choose home page on the side and it says, okay, what page do you want students to see first? You want them to see an assignment list, the modules? Do you want to see a specific page that you've created, which we'll talk about this afternoon when we do our elementary home pages? Do you want them to see the stream? So my suggestion, if it is a homeroom page or if you're a specialist teacher, you're going to want to create the landing page that you want students to see when they get to your course. If it's a course where you're only linking to that course from your homepage, so you're reading, right, math, science, social studies, you could just leave that as the course modules because students won't actually be opening that class from the dashboard. They'll be linked to that class from their homeroom course. So that's just to let you know about that particular feature. So files here is just anything that you've loaded into the class. So you can see I have a lot of images and things like that that I have brought in. You won't have anything like that yet. Pages. So a page is, and this is an example of the elementary homeroom page that we'll delve into editing and making your own this afternoon. But this is an example of the elementary homeroom page that you can create. So a page is something that is content or that is something you want students to view, but not something that you want them to edit. So a page is not something students are going to be able to type on or work on. It's just your delivery of content or a way to show them an organization. So this content you can link, so you can set up links for your page to go to other places, but your page is not something where students are going to be submitting anything. When we're looking back at how it kind of mirrors Google Classroom, your pages are like your view-only content. So your course materials or any of your like view-only slideshows you wanted students to see, those would all be examples of your pages. So let me show you here. So this is a page, and you notice here I switched to modules, which we'll talk about in just a second, but a module is basically where you're building a lesson. So it could be by day, it could be by week, but this is a page within a lesson. And this is just an example I made. This is not the ones that have been made by the district, so don't, if my content doesn't match the title on the top, this is just examples, so please forgive me on that. So you'll notice here, this just has some directions and it has a slideshow for students to go through. There is nothing for them to type here. So this is just, a page is just the delivery of the information itself. So instead of like in Google Classroom where you might have set something to students can view only, now you're going to put that information inside of a page itself. All right, so that is a page. Announcements are done here. So if announcements are things that you can set up to show to students that will show on their main screen, and I'll show you where in the settings you can make the announcements pop up across the top, because you might have noticed that when we are at home, this is popping up across the top, and that's because I set it that way. So my suggestion is if you're a classroom teacher, always do your announcements within your homeroom course, because that's the course that students are going to be always starting at. So you don't have to manage announcements in each one of your courses, just your homeroom course. So if I want to add an announcement, I would just click here on the announcement, and then I can give it a title and I can type it in here. And we will talk about all of these options here across the top in a little bit and what they all mean, but that is where you are creating an announcement. So I'm going to cancel that here. Now, if I want those announcements to show up on my main screen, it does not automatically do that. So right now, if I don't have it set up differently, if I don't go to the settings and make this change, students would actually have to click on the announcement button to see it. But if I go in here to settings and I hit it a little bit, so it's a little trickier to find, and then I go to course details, scroll down, you'll see this lovely little thing here called more options. This is where you're going to want to come down. And I have this box checked, show recent announcements on course home page. So whatever page you decide to set as your home page, if you check this box, this is what is going to allow that announcement to pop up. You can also decide how many announcements you want to come up on the screen. So the suggestion that's been made to me by Nick was that he's been told is no more than 3, because otherwise it starts to take up a lot of the page and it can get a little confusing. You can decide if you want to give students some of these permissions. I really don't want them organizing their own groups, making their own discussion posts or different things like that. So I'm going to leave those unchecked. And then don't forget to click on this update course. So this was in settings, course details, and I clicked on more options to get to the bottom of the screen. So I click on update course now. That is where now it's set so that anytime I make an announcement, it's going to show up here across the top of whatever page I set as the home page. So that will just automatically do that. And like I said, if you are a classroom teacher, I would do all of this in your homeroom course. That's where you're going to want that to happen. All right, so that's announcements. Then the next thing is assignments. So these are any assignments that you built for your course. You can see that I have a lot of them in here because I have a lot of content I pulled in to practice with. You won't have anything there. You can, yes, go ahead, Erin.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to clarify because I did answer a question wrong earlier. Because you are linking everything to your homeroom course, eventually someone asked earlier if you needed to change the settings in all of the courses, and that is not correct. You would not need to only in your homeroom course because that's what you're operating out of.
Right. Now, if you did want, because when students get linked to the course that they're working on, you may still want to hide some of these things just because it will take them to that course to do that work. So you could still hide things across the side that you don't want students messing with when they're linked to that course. And then you know, they just have fewer things to click on. But yes, that is a good point. Thank you, Erin. Anything else?
I can't figure out the muting.
You're fine.
No, I'm good. I think that's it. Everybody's awesome.
Okay. Or at least they're not telling us if they aren't, one or the other. All right. So in an announcement here, you can click on plus, or sorry, not announcement. We're in assignments now. You can click on plus assignment. You can give an assignment a name. You can give all the content you want here. Underneath here is where you're deciding the number of points you want it worth. You can group assignments. So if you want to create a group of certain types of assignments that you give, you can do that. You can show how the grades are displayed. And then you have different assignment types. Now we're going to look at more of these specifically in just a minute. But I just wanted to show you just the basic things that are on an assignment screen. So you can decide if you want to make a limited or an unlimited amount of attempts. So whether or not they can redo that assignment and resubmit it or not. You can decide if you want it to be assigned to everyone. If you have students that are in your course and they receive SPED support for a particular subject, then just like with Google Classroom, where you chose to give it to all of the other students but that student, and then the SPED teacher would then give it to that student in a modified version, that's where you would do that. So this is just like in Google Classroom where you're picking, am I assigning this to everyone or am I going to choose specific students? Now, I don't really have a student list here to show because I don't have real students in this course, but that's where you would do that. You can set due dates, which I've been told is a good thing to do as far as the SIS integration goes. So that could be something helpful for you, even if you aren't taking any points off if something is late. It's helpful to have that due date there. Notice with everything that you create, whether it be a page or a module or an assignment, you have these two options here, save or save and publish. So if you press save, that's basically like saving a draft of that particular item, and the students will not be able to see it yet. So if you want it to be visible to students, you always have to click on that save and publish. So if you're working on things, obviously saving is fine. If you want students to be able to view what you've created, then you're going to want to do the save and publish. The next thing is your discussions. This is something that, and these are text discussions. I don't know as an elementary teacher that I would necessarily be using this because then I would have to then monitor everything that's going on in the discussions. You could create a discussion to go with a particular unit or lesson and have it built within that lesson itself. But I think in general, that's something I would probably hide from the navigation screen. Maybe we'll change our minds as we go through the year, since this is all theoretical to us at this point. But I'm going to say, in general, I don't know that discussions would need to be turned on for kids. The grades button is going to be where you can view and view the scores that you've given to students on grades. You see, anytime I make something that is an assignment, it brings that in. This will be able to be connected to SIS, so that, and especially for our 3rd through 5th grade teachers that give the regular grades A through F and so forth, we'll be able to connect this to SIS to where these grades here can automatically get put into the gradebook in SIS. For K2, we've asked lots of questions about how exactly that's going to work, and they're still looking into how that connection is made with standards-based grading. One of the things that Nick mentioned is even if we can't make it connect exactly, certainly you could make your assignments out of 4 points so that it mirrors what you would be putting into SIS. So I wish we had a more 100% answer for you if you're a K-2 teacher of whether or not these grades here will automatically be able to be transferred to SIS, or if you will need to put them in manually if they're scored here. But we just don't have more information for you on that point. But that question, I promise you, the question has been asked multiple times. The elementary trainers actually have a document of questions that we're waiting on answers for. So that is one of those things that is on the document that we are hoping to get more information about. Thankfully, it's not something that necessarily you need to know to get started day one, but certainly as we go throughout that first quarter is something we want more information about. So we will be getting some videos and things together to where you can see how that connection works with this, because we don't have any students imported yet into these classes, and these are just pretend classes. We're not able to actually test that out yet. But once that import is made and we can test it out, then we'll get some more training materials about how all of that works. And these are just some fake students I've added to the course. You can see some random names and things like that there. So that is your grade section. In your people section, remember, once again, this is by course. So these are the people that I have enrolled in my pretend homeroom 5th grade course. So as the teacher, you are allowed to click on plus people. And unlike, since this isn't connected with Google Classroom like it was to the Google directory, you would actually have to type in the person's full email address if you wanted to add them. Now, the nice thing with students, you're not going to have to add students, right? Because those are going to be automatically pushed into your class through SIS. However, if you work with a SPED teacher and they have some students that they aren't responsible for that student's grade in SIS, but they help you to modify assignments for particular students, this is where you could add those teachers to your course. And Nick also mentioned possibly adding a para, if you have a para that works with a kid full-time, and he wasn't 100% sure how that would look. But when you're adding, you then need to make sure you decide what role you're giving them. So if it's a person that's going to help you teach the course, then you would want to make sure to add them as a teacher. But you will have to type in their full email address. This is not connected to the Google directory, unfortunately. So if you just type in their name, it's not like it's going to pop up like it did in Google Classroom. Yes, Erin.
Okay, so 2 things.
Yep.
The first one is you cannot assign something to 2 separate courses at the same time, correct? You have to go into each course and assign within the course.
Right. Yes. So, okay. Yes, if you are a classroom teacher, you're going to build your lessons just like when you're building your lessons in the regular classroom, right? Like you get all of your materials and your papers that you're going to use for reading together. You get all your materials and papers together that you're going to use for writing. Think of it the same way as you're using this online. So if you want to make a reading lesson or a reading unit, you're going to go to your reading course to set that up. If you want to make a writing lesson, you're going to go to your writing course to set that up. We looked into whether or not we could just put all of the courses together under homeroom. The problem is when you do that, first of all, the grading gets a little messy with what's going to SIS and which section it's going to. And secondly, putting all of your content into one course makes your page of content just absolutely massive. So like this page is here. If I were to scroll down, I already have a lot here, and this was just for some samples that I did. This is like a couple units of math and reading, I think maybe 5 or 6 days of each, and you can see how long it is already. So if I were to try to put all of my content for every course into homeroom, because we tried it to see what it would look like, and this page just kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So the management of that just did not work. So that's why we're keeping all of your reading materials in your reading course, all of your writing materials in your writing course, and so forth. Do you think that answers
Yes.
question, Erin? Okay.
The next one was confusion about organization. This person said that they had they thought that the student would see a math class, a science class, a reading class, and then they would have to work in each of those separate subjects. So technically, yes, on the back end, you as the teacher are going to be working in each of those courses. But the only thing students will have to work out of is the homeroom course, because you will be linking. So each course has its own unique URL, and the assignments have their unique URL, meaning
so that's what's across the page that I'm highlighting here.
Yes. So you will just be making the navigation much easier for students rather than having to go into science and into social studies or into math. They're just going into homeroom. We're just going to train them to go into homeroom. And then from there, everything that they need is just linked, is the goal. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, that's what our plan is at this point. That's the way that as we've talked and as we've done training and worked with the virtual teachers that are creating content, that seems to be the way that it would make the most sense. So for example here, if this was my teacher homepage, okay, so this was on the homeroom course, and students clicked on a particular day of that course, then they would see their schedule for the day. Now remember, and this is something I want to make sure that I point out, we built all of this homepage, we built this schedule, we built all of this to make it work for our 100% virtual kids, but we also know that at any point, all of us could become 100% virtual. So I understand that if you are a regular classroom teacher that is face-to-face, that on a regular school year, you may have organized your homepage differently than what we are going to give you. However, we want to make sure that if at any point we have to all switch to virtual, that this is set up so that it would work for 100% virtual classroom, with the understanding that as a face-to-face classroom teacher, you may not use this whole schedule every day. You may just have this link to your reading course. You may just have this link to your word study course, and you may not be using these meeting times and materials and all that kind of stuff. You may just have this set up to where you say, click on Monday, today's Monday, click on reading, and this is just going to take students into the reading course. So that's what we mean by linking to those courses. So these are just going to set it up so it gets students to their reading course without them having to go back out of their homeroom course and then go back into their dashboard. So because for our 100% virtual kids, we don't want them to have to keep going back to the dashboard and reopening different courses and trying to keep up with that all day long. So that's why we're making it this way for everybody. But once you set up this link once to your reading course, unless you want to set it up to where it links to a particular assignment within the course, this can just be set up to your reading course materials from the beginning, and it can stay that way. Yes, Erin.
Can you pick and choose which grades go back and forth between SIS and Canvas, or is it just all of them?
Yes, you can pick and choose. Like I said, we know that you can do that because we don't have the SIS classes imported yet. We haven't been able to, us personally, work with that, but we know that it can be done. And I know that Nick has talked to people at Wentzville who have been using Canvas for at least the last year, maybe the last couple. And so he knows, because the Wentzville uses the same SIS that we do. He knows that that integration can happen and that you can pick and choose which assignments actually go into SIS. So as a tech teacher, I may use my grade book here on Canvas, but since I only give students a final grade for the quarter, 1, 2, 3, or 4, I may not connect any of my assignments to SIS itself because I'm just going to want to use the grade book within Canvas just for my own information, and then have students see the final grade at the end of the quarter. But as a classroom teacher, you don't necessarily, if you're doing things on paper, obviously you don't grade everything, right? At least I hope you don't, because that's a lot of work. So you don't necessarily get everything into the grade book. And it's the same thing when you're working with Canvas. Just because it's in your grade book doesn't mean that it has to show up in the grades in SIS. So hopefully that answers that particular question. All right. So people, syllabus as an elementary teacher, that's not something that you need to worry about. So I'm going to skip that. Same thing with outcomes. That's not something you need to worry about. So we're not going to worry about that either. Modules is a big one. So a module is a building block of a lesson. To relate it back to Google Classroom, a module is similar to how you would have done your topics in Google Classroom. So in the spring, I know some people did topics by day. So they had a topic for one particular day and all of the activities that students were doing for that day. Some teachers organized it where they had topics by week, and they'd had everything that students working on the week underneath there. I think if you are a 100% virtual teacher, I know when the teachers were helping to create content for you, they did it by day because you are doing everything in Canvas. So they wanted to make it very specific to each individual day. If you are a face-to-face teacher, especially if you're K3 and you don't have, one-to-one Chromebooks, you would not necessarily have to organize your units that detailed per day. That would be more up to you of how you want to organize it. So a module is a combination of pages, of assignments, of quizzes, of discussions that all to go together to make a full lesson or a full unit, depending on how much content you want to put within a module. So I'm going to go ahead over here and I'm going to create a module. So I'm just going to say, let's pretend this was day 1 math. If you are a 100% virtual teacher, I would really encourage you to make sure that your modules are named very, very specifically, so that if you have parents that are trying to get to students to certain assignments, yes, you're going to link them from the homeroom, but just in case parents need to go back and do past work because their student missed or anything like that, and just for your own sake, as far as, because as you start building modules for each day, that's going to be quite a few modules that you're going to have to manage. So the better that you can name those modules is going to be more helpful for you in the end as far as your own organization goes too. So this might even be Unit 1, Lesson 1, Math. This might be 824 a day. I said, the better you can name that, the easier I think your life is going to be in the end. Notice that you have this lock until. So if you want to create a module, but you don't want it to open to a particular day, you can go ahead to and set it to lock so that it automatically publishes on a particular date. So that's something you might want to think about once you actually have your classes loaded in SIS, but school hasn't started yet and you're wanting to create some things and get it all ready for kids. You know, they probably won't know how to get onto Canvas yet, but just in case, you could set things to lock, or as you're working ahead. So let's say you're in, you know, teaching, it's week 2 or whatever, and you're starting to work on content for week 3, but you don't want to have students be able to see it yet. You could use this locking from the beginning to set a date of when it will open. There is also an add prerequisite. So you can set this up to where they have to finish a particular other unit first before they can go on to this one. This might be helpful, excuse me. So if you have students that were absent and you want them to make sure they make up work in a particular order, you could set it up to where, well, they're going to have to complete this module first before they can actually get into this module. So that can be more helpful, I think, for those 100% virtual kids. So you can set up the order of, if you want to get to unit, you know, day 2 on math, you have to do day 1 first. If you want to get to day 3 on math, your prerequisite is you have to do day 2 first. So you can set it up in a sequential order so that students can only get to the content based on what they've already done. So that's another item, especially for 100% virtual teachers. I don't know if it will be used as much in face-to-face classes because you'll be with them, guiding them of what you want them to open. But I did want you to see that that is an option. All right, so when I add a module, it's actually going to add it at the bottom of my screen, and I know I have a lot of stuff here. So this is that module that I just made. You do, I will move this out of the way here. All right, so notice here, if I don't want it there, I can always say, Aaron, I gotta move your little button again. I can always say where I want that to go. So you can organize the order in which your modules are seen to. My suggestion would be to put the newest content at the top. I think that would be the easiest for students to be able to find. So now I have this here. And now I want to talk about adding content to a module, what that content might look like, making sure that it's published and all of that. So you'll notice here that I have the little circle with the line through it. That means that this module is not yet published. So these modules here that have the check mark, these are published. So if something is created but not published, students are not going to be able to see it. So that's the nice thing in Canvas is you can create a lot of things in advance that students can't actually see. So they're visible to on your end. You can work with them, you can play with them, you can, you know, finesse them, whatever you need to do. But students will not yet be able to see that work. Also, though, means that you want to make sure that you do publish when you want students to be able to actually see it. So if I want to add something to a module that I've created, I'm just going to come here and click on this plus sign. And you're going to see that I have a drop down of items that I can pick from of what I want students to be able to see. So I have an option of assignment, quiz, a file, a page, discussion, text header. So that's more organizational tool. And then I have some external tools and URLs. The main ones that you're going to be using are going to be pages, assignments, and quizzes, especially if at the elementary level you're not planning on assigning a discussion. You're going to stick with pages, assignments, and quizzes. That's going to give you really the building blocks that you need for the lessons that you'll be working on. So let's say that I want to just add some content. So I want to add a page. I'm going to put a slideshow in here that I want students to be able to view. It's going to be like an introduction. I do not need students to do any work on this page. So remember, pages are just for viewing. They are not for students to complete any work. So I can either then, it's going to bring up pages that are already created within my course. So if I've created something on a page and now I want to add it to a course, I can do that. Or I can create a new page within the module. So when you are creating assignments and pages and things like that, you have two options. Do you want to create them within the Pages tab and the Assignments tab and then add them to the module later? Or do you want to create the module first and then add the pages and items you need underneath it? I personally like using the module version. So I create the module first, I give it its heading so I know exactly what content needs to go underneath it. because this keeps it all organized and together. Otherwise, you're creating something out on the assignments page, creating something out on the pages page, and then having to go back to a module, create a module, add it later. In this way, you're creating it all and it stays organized. So I'm going to choose a new page. I'm just going to call this example information. I'm going to say add item. So you can see here that this then went right underneath my module. And you do have a little tab, so this is drag and drop. So if you decide this needs to actually go after something else later on, then you can do that. You'll notice too that this is also unpublished. I just want to show you here. If I click on that to publish the whole module, it publishes all of it, or I can choose just to have certain pieces published as well. So if I just publish this page is available, but the module is not. So my suggestion is, get everything together and then go ahead and publish your module when it's all the pieces are put into it. All right, so now I have this page, but I don't actually have anything on it yet. So I want to go ahead and add some content that I want students to be able to see. I'm going to click on the page here. All right, now this right here, all it has right now is the title that I've given it, and this title will always show up. So however you name it will always show up at the top of the page. There's no way to get rid of this here, just so you know, and that includes home page and everything else. Any page you create, whatever the title is, the words show up here. And then I'm going to click on this edit button, and it's going to bring up what we call the rich content editor. This is available. All these tools are available when you're making an assignment, when you're making a page, when you're adding questions within a quiz, when you're making an announcement. All of these tools in this rich content editor are always available. And there are some really awesome tools that are in Canvas in this rich content editor that you don't necessarily have in things like Google Classroom. But I will say too, because they're really big on Canvas for accessibility and readability of things, you're not going to have a lot of options as far as text goes. So those of you, and Erin went on with me, she loves her some cool fonts. She's my font queen. When you are creating things in here, your options are going to be here. Okay, so you can either make it bigger or smaller, but it keeps the font style the same. So once again, that is for accessibility reasons, so that it's easier when students are trying to read it, or if we're using, which I'll show you in a minute, the immersive reader that reads things to students, it makes it easier on that end. You still have your bold, italics, underline that you normally do. You can change the text color. Just be careful with text colors that you're not picking something that's not easy to read, like yellow, for example. You have background color, which is kind of like a highlighting of the text. You can still, so you can clear formatting if you change your mind. You can still align things left, right, center. You can indent things. So if you want to make certain text go in or out. The superscript and subscript, this is if you're adding things, like math symbols and things like that. You have your bullet points, you have a numbered list. Okay, so I made this a header, so you can see that's why it's a little bigger, but we are learning about today. So I might have that. And then when I press enter, you'll notice it changed it to paragraph. So it recognized that underneath a header, I probably am going to want smaller writing. So I could type what my goals are for today. Obviously, I'm just making these up. These aren't actually what you would put. So that's how that would look text-wise. Okay, and then if I wanted to, I could come up here. I could change the color if I want it to be a different color. I could change the background color if I want it to be that. Ooh, that is kind of ugly. That's okay. It's certainly viewable. It's very nice and bright. So you can make those kind of changes within your text itself. And then you can also change the size manually. So these are the options that you have for size. So you can change here if you want it to have, the heading size, or you can also select something and change the size here. But once again, it's not set up for it to have all of those fancy fonts and things like that. However, if you're creating stuff within Google Slides and then just importing or embedding it here, then whatever you made in Slides will show up here. So a lot of the content I know for classes has already been made in Slides. There's a lot of things for reading and ELA and so forth that are already in slideshows that you can just drop in here. So you're not having to recreate everything from scratch, but you just don't have as many options in this rich content editor. Another thing you can do is you can add a table and you can decide how far across and down it goes. So if you're setting up information, so if I'm setting up my information in a table, I would click on that just like I normally would. You'll see here, these options come across the bottom when you're working on table. These are your table properties. So this is where you can delete the table. You can insert rows above or below. You can delete a row. You can insert columns, delete columns. So those normal tools that you would have when you insert a table in Word or in Google Docs, this is the same kind of tools that you're going to have. When we look at creating our elementary homepages later today, that is something that we use to set up those little images, because you can bring an image in here. So if I click on Embed Image, and this is, I have a lot of images that are already set up, so I'm just going to pick one that I have. All right, this is just a random image. This has nothing to do with the content. So if I have images that are already pulled in, I can bring those images in here. So images can go within a table, that helps it to be visual, or images can just go within the box itself. Okay, so this embed image tool is really helpful. You'll notice when I'm embedding an image, the first option that comes up with is URL. I have never used this option, because this would mean that you went out to the web and you found the very specific URL that goes to that specific image. That is not easy to do. What I do most of the time is I download images to my computer and then I upload them to Canvas. So if I'm working with an image, I'm going to go to Canvas. I can either choose to look to import it to a particular course, and I can also just say I want it to be within my files. I usually pick course files here. And then if I click on upload file, it's going to open up my computer and it's going to say, what images do you have that you have saved to your computer? So if I have this image saved to my computer, I'm going to click open. It's going to load. Notice here, this says alternate text. This is great for accessibility. So if you are having students click on a particular picture to get to somewhere else in Canvas, so if you're making your image your link, it's nice for the accessibility for students using a screen reader if you also give it words here. So that button was called My Classroom. So if I give it those same, so whatever words were on my image, I'm putting here, that helps with accessibility. As far as the screen reader being able to recognize that that image has words on top of that image. Notice here, this is the dimensions. These are in pixels. The dimensions of things that are in the sample homepage you'll look at later already have the correct pixels set up, so you would not need to change what's already there. So you notice here, so I can add an image within just the page itself. I can also add images within a table. So that is my embedding image. The difference is than what you're used to in Google things is in Google, you can just do a Google search for an image, right? But because this is not a Google product, you're going to need to download those images first. There is the option of searching Flickr. These are free images. So if I typed classroom in here, I mean, it's going to bring some things up. So depending on what you're finding and looking for, you may find something within Flickr that you could use. So like if I want that classroom one and I say update, So there are some free images built in through Flickr. It is not going to be as many as you have in a Google search, however. So just keep that in mind. I spent, more time finding images and downloading them than I normally have to do within Google things. But anything that you've found and downloaded, you can certainly upload to Canvas and use. All right, so that is a table and that is embedding images. So that's these two items here that we have talked about. And then the next thing we're going to look at is insert or edit media. So this is if you have some kind of screen show that are slides that you've made, not slides, sorry, a video that you have made that you have the embed code for, that's where you would do this. Now, there are other ways to get video onto your screen. And I know the people that are doing the sessions later this week where they're talking about Screencastify and things like that are going to go more into how to get those videos there. But I just wanted to show you that tool that's available. This is linking. So this will allow you to link an image or text to something else. So let's say this math equations here, I wanted to link this to a particular website or a particular game or something like that. I'm just going to type in our district website just to show you as an example here. So if I wanted it to link to a particular site, I'm going to highlight what I want, click on that linking button and click on insert link. So now you see here that that turned blue. So that's similar to when I was doing links in a Google slideshow where I'd highlight it and I'd insert the link that way. It's the same idea. The difference then with Canvas, what you can do with linking is you can also link to another part of your course. So let's say that this image here, I want to link that to another part of my course. So I can come here and I can say, I want when students click on this picture of the desk, I want it to actually take students to the assignment page of my course. So these are all things within this particular course that you're saying, I want to link from here to another spot in my course. So that's where I could say, all right, they click on the desk, that's going to take them to the assignment page. And notice you saw that turn colors. That means that that link has been made. So if it's a link to another website or another page that's not in your course, then you're going to do the link as a URL. Okay, so if I'm trying to link to a math course and I'm in my homeroom course, that's going to be this kind of link. And we'll look at more of how you get that specific link later, but that's the kind of linking you would do. If you want to link to something that's in the course that you are inside of, then you can choose to link to a page within your course, an assignment within your course, a quiz within your course. Like you could make this picture go to one particular page or one particular assignment if you wanted to. Or you can make it just go to your assignments general page. You can make it go to your announcements page. So you can make the linking within a course as specific or general as you would like. So that is the linking part there. I know this is a lot. Our break is coming up soon, I promise, so you can all take a breather at that point. If you change your mind, you can also click on an item and you can say remove link. And you'll know the item is linked because you have that little arrow up there. That will remind you that you've linked this page to something else, whether it's another website or another course or another page within your course. So if you wanted to get rid of that link, you can click that there. Okay. All right. So that is the linking. So we've gone through tables, media, linking, unlinking images. This insert math equation, that is going to probably, for a lot of you, be much farther up than you would need. If you are a math teacher, though, or if you're teaching math and you would want to include some of those math symbols within the text, you could do that there. So you can actually build your equations within there, and then you can say insert, and that will pop up here. So this button allows you to build an equation, and then this would then insert that equation on your page. Wherever your cursor is blinking is where it would insert. Now you'll notice here too one of the things that you don't see here, which you are used to seeing within Google navigation, is our very wonderful, much loved undo button. However, that doesn't mean you can't undo. Don't stress out. What you would need to do, and Erin, I might have you actually type the shortcut key into the chat just so for people that might not know.
Oh, we just had a friend actually comment on that.
Oh, that's so nice. See?
Be a good time to mention that Control Z can be used for undo. And I said, absolutely, Control Z is your best friend.
Yes, it is. So since you don't have that undo arrow, if you do Control Z, it will do the same thing that undo does. It will undo the last thing that you did. So if you made a mistake and you accidentally got rid of a table and you didn't mean to, so I'm like, oh, I deleted that table. Oops, Control Z, now it's back. Okay. You can also, highlight over text like you normally would and just click on delete. So that works as well, just like you would normally do. But as far as the undo button, just Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. And if you happen to be working on a MacBook like I'm on today, it's Command Z, but it's the same basic principle. Okay. Oh, there is my timer. That looks like a good place to stop. So we are going to take just a couple minute break here. Erin, what do you think? 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
5 is good. I'll still be watching the Q&A. So if you have questions as you're sitting there, I will answer.
All right, how about let's go in between. Let's say, to make it a nice round number, 9:25. We will come back. So if you have questions or if you want to play around with some of the things I've been talking about, and then see if you have questions once you're playing around with it, we can do that then. So at 9:25, we will come back and we will continue. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this recording, and then we will resume recording at 9:25. All right, so we will see you then.
Yes.
Okay, it is 9:25, so I'm going to go ahead and click resume on our recording and we will continue on here. All right, so we are making sure I'm still recording here. Yep, we're good. Okay. Erin, before I go on to anything else, is there anything coming up in the chat that you think is worth addressing right now?
Nobody had any like really specific questions.
Okay.
But yeah, it seems like we've got some good understanding going on. So I'm grateful for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Erin, for managing all of that for me.
Of course.
Yeah, so we're going to continue to look at this rich content editor as we are building this page. So we talked about all these items across the top and these ones here. And the one that we're going to look at next is YouTube. So YouTube is fully integrated into Canvas, which is really nice because if I click on the YouTube button, I can then either type a specific link or I could type a topic that I want to find a video for. So if I want to say math problem solving, I have no idea what's going to come up here. So, all right, we've got some interesting things coming up here. So if I want to then make that video come up on the screen, all I have to do is click on this embed button and it brings that video on. Oh, I do not know who that guy is. All right, so this embeds that YouTube video directly here. So instead of having to put it onto a Google slideshow and then bring that slideshow over to Canvas, if you just wanted to include a video that you want students to view as part of the content that they need to learn about for that day, you can embed that directly from YouTube. Then the next option here is Commons favorites. This is not one. This is you could pull something in from the Commons that you have that you've saved as a favorite, but I don't see you using that from the beginning here, maybe as a more advanced tool. This little V here is called More External Tools. So if I click on that, you're going to see that, oh, there's now 3 options that come up. Erin, Nick got the Discovery one going, it looks like. So the first option that you have is Google Drive. So you can attach anything that is created in Drive and drop it onto a page. So if I click here on Google Drive, it's going to pop up my drive. Notice that my name pops up here. I think if I'm remembering correctly, you might have to authorize it the first time. But after that, it'll just show the last account that was used. And then you would select File. And then over here, it's going to bring up your drives and it's going to be organized just like you're used to seeing your drive organized. So I can search for something or I can go to my drive and go to folders. It's going to bring up recent first like you're used to seeing. So I can click on a slideshow or a document or whatever I want to add and then just click on add. So the nice thing with this integration that I really like is that when you go to attach something and put it on a Canvas page, it automatically changes the sharing settings in Google for you. So it says attaching this file will change the sharing settings and allow anyone with the link to access it. So if this was a slideshow you were working on and you hadn't gone in Google and clicked the share button and made sure that link was visible, this will force the file to have that sharing setting automatically, which is really nice because I know sometimes I forget to do that. So then it's going to embed the slideshow right into my Canvas page, and there's still working there. So now I have my slideshow built in here. This is the slideshow that I was showing you a slide from earlier, so it embeds it right here. Now, there are ways to get fancy and to go in and change some coding so that you don't see the little bars across the top and the bottom. That is something that we have directions for if you're interested in doing that later, but that's not really a level 1 type of thing. But just so you know, yes, it will come up with these bars, and yes, there are ways that you can get rid of those bars, but it takes a little bit of going into the coding, which I don't really want to get into right here. Just know that you can use it and you can embed it. So you can also get an image here, but I usually just use this image button because I don't have to click on 2 things. And I know Nick was talking about he had also attached an integrated discovery education. I haven't actually clicked on this yet because this was just added, but you should be able to, the idea is that you can get videos from Discovery as well as YouTube to put on a page. Okay. This next one, record, upload media. This is a feature, hi everybody, that is part of Canvas that you don't have in Google Classroom that I really, really like. So within any page, you can record yourself for your students. You can also set up assignments so that students can use this as well. So they can record themselves if they are doing an assignment. Now, when you're looking at it, you see there's record media and upload media. This is where if you have an audio or video file, like you made something in Screencastify or something like that that you wanted to upload here, you can do that here. So this will just bring up your computer and any things that you've downloaded. Or you can do the recording within Canvas itself. So you'll see here, if I click on start recording, it'll give me a countdown and then it's recording me now as I speak. I have my start over button. If I make a mistake, I can click finish when I'm done. Oh, that's a lovely picture of me. And then you can give it a title if you want, and you can press save. And then what that's going to do is it's going to put your recording on the page. Now, right now, it doesn't look like it's much of a recording. However, when I press this save button, that's when the magic happens. So notice I'm giving content to kids, okay? And here's my recording that I made. So now it's going to open a big screen. Okay. So look at all of the things, and I haven't even gotten to everything yet. These are all things that you can put in one place to give information to students. So if I'm teaching students a lesson, whatever subject it is, I can put on the same page, I can put a video, I can put a slideshow, I can put myself giving directions or talking to students. Especially, I think for 100% virtual kids, the more times that they can see your face, even if it looks ridiculous like that, is better. So all of this content is in one page and it all can go with the same lesson. Now, students are not interacting with this page because it's a page, not an assignment, but this is always, I can deliver that information to students. One other thing I wanted to point out with that upload media, so I'm going to come down here. The other option you have when recording is just to record the audio. So if I click here on webcam, I can choose no video. And now it's just an audio recording. So if you just wanted to read something to students or give them a helpful reminder, but you didn't want to actually show your face, as long as you turn off the video, it'll save it just as an audio file instead of a video file. So it'll look the same way here. It's just when students go to click on it, they will only get audio. Yes, Sarah.
Do you know anything about the BrainPop integration there, or where would that be?
So I know that the district is wanting to purchase BrainPop for everybody K-5. I think, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think, Erin, that's done through Clever as far as getting students to be able to view BrainPop videos. I don't know what the integration as far as it coming up on the actual side here works, because we don't have it set up yet. But Erin, if you want to put that on, as we need to add that to our list of questions for Nick and JB, that's
yes,
getting nice and long for them to answer for us. Just because it's not set up yet, so we haven't had a chance to actually use it yet. The only thing that we know is we're supposed to be getting BrainPop accounts for everybody so that kids can view BrainPop videos and we can use BrainPop videos and things like that. Whether that's going to be a link to BrainPop on this page or whether it's going to actually be along the side here.
Integrate, yeah.
That we are not sure of yet. It's a great question,
okay.
though. It's a really
Perfect.
good question. We just don't have a specific answer for you yet. Okay, so that is how you would set up a page of information for students. So I can incorporate lots of different content all within the same page, and students would just kind of scroll down and view things as you are going. And then do make sure that you remember to click on the save button. That is something I'm trying to get used to again, is making sure that I save things. Okay. So all of this is put together for students. And because I added this into my module, because I went to modules first and built my day and added this underneath it, that page stays where I want it to be in my module. So yes, it's listed here in my pages, but this is going to get really long, really fast, because as you add more content, you're going to have a lot more pages. So the easiest way to find and organize your content is going to be within your modules themselves. Okay. Now you notice too, you have your little page symbol. So you have little symbols here on the side that show you what kind of activity it is. And also for students as well, they'll see that this means that this is just a page of information. All right, but let's say I want to add an assignment onto this page. So I've given them the information, they've looked at the video, they've watched the slideshow, they've heard me talking, but now I want them to actually do some work of their own. It's time for students to do the work. So I'm going to click on my plus sign again here, and this time I'm going to add assignment, and that is the default one that seems to pop up. So I'm going to add an assignment. I can pick from assignments that are already created in my course, or I can just start a new assignment, which I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to do example assignment here. Notice too here, you have the option to indent. So if you like to organize things to where all of yours, I'm going to do one indent level here and add my item. So if you like to organize things where you want your assignments to be in farther than your pages, just for a visual perspective, that is something you can certainly do. You can also change the indenting. If you click on the 3 dots here, you also have the option to indent later if you forget to do it at the beginning. Also on these 3 dots, just to point out, you can edit it that way, or you can just click on it to get to the editing page. You can duplicate things. So if you want to make, 2 similar pages and just change one thing within that versus starting all over again, you can certainly do that. You can move something. So if you say, oh, I wanted this to be on the 24th, but actually now it needs to be on the 25th, and I have a separate module for the 25th, I can move items from one module to another. I can remove if I want to delete, and you can share it to the comments. So if you are super, super proud of what you created and you want everybody to be able to see that, then you could share it to the comments for other people to view. All right, now notice too here, right now this is not published. That's why I have the line through it. So if I want students to be able to actually do the assignment, I'm going to have to publish that stuff and have those check marks there, or else students aren't going to be able to actually do it. So let me click on my example assignment. All right, and then I'm going to click on edit here. And you'll notice, this looks very familiar, because this is the same rich content editor that you had when you created a page. So all of those same tools that you could use when you built a page can also be built when you are giving students an assignment. Now, if this is an assignment that you want them to submit through Canvas, and we're going to focus on the Canvas specific ones here first. So if I wanted them to just answer some questions, and I had my questions here of what I wanted them to answer, I can just type that in, and then students can then be able to just answer the question via text. I can also have them answer the question by uploading a video of themselves, which we'll look at in just a second here. So, but I just want you to see that you can, even if it's an assignment and it's not a page, you can still add content above the work the students are actually going to do. So maybe you have a picture of an anchor chart that you want to include here to remind students of what you were talking about in math or in writing before they actually do the work. And you can actually put that on the assignment page. So you might have it on your page itself of content, but then you might put it again on your assignment so that students can view it while they're actually working on the assignment itself. Otherwise, they'll have to go back to the page to get to that information. You could make this to where students watch a video first and then they answer questions about it. So you might have them watch a YouTube video that you put up top, and then they're going to answer questions about that video on the bottom. You may want to record yourself speaking and reminding them of things, or reviewing something that they learned about today, or give them expectations of what you want in their work. So you can use this record and do that, or if you made a screencast showing them how to do a particular lesson. So you're wanting them to type something, but you wanted to show them an example first. You could do a screencast and upload that screencast here, because notice this is your face, it's not your screen. So if you're doing something where you want to record your screen, you'll record that in another program and upload that file here. So you can import something from Google Drive. So once again, I could go to Google Drive and I have a slideshow that I want to put in here as review before students start on the assignment. So anything that you added on your page of content, you can also add to an assignment itself. All right, so but the difference is, when we're talking about an assignment, is you're going to have points that you can give it. If you don't want it worth any points, you could just leave that as 0. You can give it an assignment group. So if you have like some kind of a problem solving group of assignments and you want to keep that separate from other math assignments, you could do it that way. You can decide how you want the grade to be displayed. Notice here, do not count this assignment towards the final grade. This is within Canvas itself, though, not within SIS. Here's the important part as far as when you're assigning something, you have to decide, how are students going to show you the work? In which way do you want them to demonstrate their understanding? So the option that's automatically selected is no submission. So that would mean that they don't have to actually submit anything to this assignment, which is probably not what you're going to have most of the time, okay? If you're wanting to use what Canvas provides within Canvas's platform itself, that's where you're going to pick online. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. You may, however, especially if you're a classroom teacher, or even if you are a virtual teacher and students are still doing some things on paper, if you want them to actually do the work on paper itself, and then you're going to grade those papers later, if you're a face-to-face teacher, you're still, as far as I know, you're still allowed to do some things on paper and have students turn it in, especially if you're K-3. You're not going to have the devices all of the time. So there's still going to be things that they need to do on paper. The reason that this can be helpful is this still makes this assignment in Canvas grades. So you can still take the stack of papers, but then put the grade into Canvas itself. So it just gives you that spot within Canvas to be able to put the grade for what you had students do on paper, okay? But if you are working on, and we'll talk about external tools a little bit later, if you're working with Canvas's tools that are built into Canvas itself, then you are given these 4 options, okay? So if I want students to do the work and I want them to turn it in to me using Canvas's options, I have the option of a text entry. This means they are typing an answer. A website URL. This is not one for elementary I think we would use very often. This means I can give a link for the teacher to go to view my work on another website. Don't think we'll be using that very often. Media recordings. This is what's going to allow students to record themselves and have that be their submission for that particular assignment. And then file upload means students are working in a separate file that they've created on their own and they want to upload it here. That is not one I think we would use at the elementary level really either, because we have an integration with Google that works like Google Classroom, where you can assign them a copy. I promise we will look at that, just not yet. So if you're going to sign through Canvas, and I know when the teachers created the virtual curriculum, they've been working on it, these are the 2 that they usually left checked off. Now for younger kids, it's going to be especially important that you give them the option to record themselves versus having to type everything out. For your older kids, you may have somewhere you want it to be a text entry and don't want them to be able to record themselves. That's up to you as far as the type of assignment and the age group of the kids that you are working with. All right, so then here you get to decide how many attempts they have to resubmit. So it can be unlimited or limited. And if you limited, you can decide the number of attempts you want to give them to redo it. You can decide, require peer reviews, group assignments. I don't know that at the elementary level, those are things that we would necessarily go into too much. And then at the bottom, you can decide who is getting this. So is this everyone, or do I want to choose? So I have specific students. I could say, I just want my kid that happens to be named demo student to get this file. This is a version of what I'm giving everybody else, but it's modified for his IEP guidelines. So I'm going to just give this assignment to him, or you can assign it to the whole class. So once again, that's like with Google Classroom, where you had to know, is this assignment everybody in my class is getting or not? Now, one of the nice things that's going to be true about Canvas that was not the same with Google Classroom is if you have students, if you're a classroom teacher and you have students that are fully in SPED for a particular subject. So let's say that they do not spend any time with you in reading. You do not assign them a reading grade. The special ed teacher assigns them the reading grade. If you're in the reading course and you are creating this assignment, that student is not in your reading course. So they aren't going to even be on the list of everyone because they are in a separate reading course with a SPED teacher. And the SPED teacher is the one that's doing all of the assigning and giving them all of their reading work, okay? So where this is going to come into play is if you do have students that just get support, so they still come to you for reading, you're still giving them a reading grade in SIS, because remember all this is connected to SIS, and you're just needing to give them a modified version of a particular assignment, that's where this would come into play. But if it's a student that, you know, is on your class list and you might only have them for science or social studies, I know sometimes we have those kind of students, then you're not going to have to worry about that unless it's a subject area that they are in your class for SIS. So that's one of the kind of nice features with Canvas is since it's pulled in through SIS, you're only going to have kids in those courses for those particular subjects that they actually are, you actually are assigning them grades for. All right, so it just reminded me I didn't assign it to everybody, and that's okay. All right, so then what would happen is students would be able to use either a text box to give their answer, or they can do the answer by recording themselves as well. All right, so I'm going to go back to my modules and come up here. All right, so now I have created a page and I have created one type of assignment here, okay? Another thing that I can add to a module, so I'm going to click on the plus sign again, is I can add a quiz. This is another one where I can see that you might use this as a classroom teacher when we want to add a quiz to our particular assignment, or to particular module, sorry. So example quiz, okay. Once again, you can decide if you want to indent. So if I want this to even be further indented than the rest, I can do that. All right, so now I have my page, I have my assignment, and I have a quiz here. Once again, not published yet, okay? So if I click on quiz, all right, so notice this is a previously unpublished quiz, all right? And then I can choose to, on my quiz, once again, I can choose to lock it if I want it opened only at a certain time, delete it, copy it, all the same things that I have the same options when I click on those three dots, okay? And then I can edit my quiz here. Now, the one thing that I have noticed with quizzes, and Erin, I don't know if you've noticed this as well, but when I'm creating a quiz within a module, it looks like it is sending me to the classic version of quizzes versus the newest version of quizzes. So I'm thinking that until they get rid of that classic version, we may actually want to create quizzes within quizzes itself. So that's something we will investigate further for you, but I am going to show you an example quiz either way. So if I go to my quizzes tab here and click on plus quiz. All right. Review quiz. And then I can decide, points. I can decide how many attempts and everything, if it's going to everybody. Save it. There we go, because this is what the new quizzes look like. So I want to make sure I show you. There's an older classic version of quiz, and there's a new version of quizzes. The classic version of quizzes is going to go away soon. So I want to show you within the new version of quizzes. So you'll notice that it kind of looks like it takes you to a whole new section. This has basically been added as like an add-on to Canvas with the new quizzes, but it does a whole lot of pretty awesome things. So this is to help take the place of your Google Forms. So if you have a Google form, you can bring your questions in your content over to Canvas quizzes instead. Now, I have had people ask, well, can I still keep using my Google Forms? Yes, you can. You can just put a link to the form within an assignment and it will take students to the form. And for now, getting started, that may be the way that you want to go ahead and do things. But eventually you might want to start bringing things over here, because the nice thing about doing it in quizzes is that if you have anything that's self-graded, that will already be self-graded within Canvas. Otherwise, if you connect to a Google form, you'll have to go to the spreadsheet for that form to see student responses and copy those over to Canvas itself. So that's just something that you'll need to decide. Is this a quiz that's worth copying and pasting over from Google Forms and remaking it within Canvas itself? Or is this a quiz where I'd rather just keep it in my Google form and just bring the scores over to Canvas later? And that's something, Erin and I, we're going to have to decide for our own stuff that we've created for classes too. Do you have a question, Erin? Or
no, I was just going to say, to make sure to talk about the grading piece and pulling it over, but yeah, with forms.
Okay.
The piece isn't in there. So
you mean going to the spreadsheet of a form?
Well, no, I just meant like the fact that if you're pulling in a form, you're not going to get a piece in Canvas. So okay. I just want to make sure.
Yes. So yeah, so we're saying you can still use your Google Forms that you've used in the past. You can still see student scores, but you're going to see student scores on the Google Forms spreadsheet. And then you're going to need to take student scores and put them into Canvas in the grading section for that assignment. Versus if you build the quiz within Canvas itself, then you are able to have anything that is self-scored, like multiple choice and things like that. That is then going to show up within Canvas. So that's just something that you'll want to think about. Not necessarily a day one thing that you have to make all of those decisions. This is just me showing you what this quiz platform looks like. I'm not saying that you need to go and start recreating all your Google Forms and put them into this version yet. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you don't think you need to do all that right now. So I can click on add content, and this is then going to ask me what kind of question that I want to put into my quiz. So there are lots of different options that you have. Multiple choice is obviously one that you probably would want to include. There's also things like matching, essay, fill in the blank. We do have some slideshows within the documentation on that website that goes through more of all the quizzes and the type of questions that you can do. I'm just going to show you an example here just so that you have seen it. So let's say I want to do a multiple choice question. So I'm going to type my question up here at the top. All right, and then I have my 4 answer choices here. Now, the nice thing with these answer choices, you might start recognizing some of these options across the top. And that is because these are similar to options you have when you are creating a page or an assignment. So if I want to include a text answer, but I also want an image to go with that answer, I can then, I can do that. So I can then go to any image that I've saved to my computer, keep using the same image because that's what I have easily available here, and I can import that image as my answer. Now, if it comes in like this and it's too big, just like in Google, you can grab the little handles on the side and you can make it smaller. But the nice thing here is I can include both. So I can put both text and an image to make it part of my answer. I can change, colors, I can center things, I can add bullet points. So I can add a link somewhere else. I can even insert some media if I recorded a video on another platform that I want as an answer option. I mean, you can get real fancy with it, but I think for elementary, the big things to know is that you can put both an image and text, one or the other or both, as your possible answers for a question. And then you do have some options here, like you have the shuffle choices, which if you're talking some of your older students, maybe third through fifth, where you're worried about them looking at each other's screens while they're completing course, they're going to be 6 feet apart this year, right? So that's not going to be a problem. But if you want to have it to where the A, B, C, and D get shuffled around based on each individual kid, so you have the same 4 answer choices, they're just not in the same order. You can use that shuffle choices if you would like, okay? There are also question banks. So if you use a similar question over and over for multiple quizzes that you are giving, you can add it to a question bank so that then you can retrieve it more quickly, especially if it's something that has images attached to it and things like that, and it's something you're using over and over. That's where the image bank might be helpful. All right. And then I just hit save. Oh, I can change my points down here. Press done. Oops, I have to get rid of these. Won't let me have blank answer box. That's probably a good thing, which actually is nice because in Google Forms, sometimes you get those where one of the answer choices is option 5 and somebody forgot to delete that. So it's kind of nice that they have that. So here's how the quiz would look then. So you have your question, you have what you want your answer choices to be. You can add some instructions up here. You can also preview what it's going to look like on the student end. Exit preview here. Now, I know that's not a lot on quizzes. I just wanted to give you a very, very short overview of quizzes just so you can see one as it is being made. Okay. I'm going to go back to my dashboard here. Go back into my class.
Can you add a video or a picture as part of the question?
As part of the question? Oh, I believe so. Let me go back here a second. That's a great question. So we're talking up here, right?
Yep.
Yes, you can do all of this. This is the question itself. Then you can embed an image, media, links. So yes, it looks like you can do that here. The one thing I don't see here though, Erin, is that YouTube one.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You might be able to insert a link to a YouTube video. I don't know if it's going to open up in a new page or not, though. We haven't actually attempted trying that out. But yes, you could put image in the question itself. That's a great question. Anything else on the quizzes there, Erin? I don't want to go into too many details and overwhelm people. I just want to make sure they could see it, but
basics are good.
Okay. All right. Oops, sorry. I'm going back to my dashboard here. Go back into my course. Okay, so now I have a module that has a page, an assignment, and it also has an example quiz. So these are really the big pieces that you as an elementary teacher would add to a particular day. So for student view, and if you notice here, I have that option to the side, student view. So if I wanted to look and see what our students going to see, you'll be able to tell that, okay, this is what I've made available for students to see when they go to the modules page. And also leave student view if I want to do that. All right, so if I'm going to preview too, I can actually, when I click on my module, you'll see here that when I get to the bottom, I have a next button, and that's what students will see as well. So if you want them to read and learn about some information, and then you want them to go on to an assignment, or then you want them to go on to a quiz, if it's all built within the module and you have everything published, then you can click that next button, and then you can students can work through it. So this page will actually allow them to submit an assignment there. And if I click next again, this would then take them to their quiz. Okay. So, and then what the teachers that are creating the content for the virtual teachers, when we look more in detail at that this afternoon, they actually are putting an ending page. So they'll get to the next button and then they'll say, stop here, you're done with reading for today, or stop here, you're done with writing for today, just so that students don't keep going and don't end up in like old modules or different things like that. So adding a page that you use as a stop page is also a great way to keep students on track. But if you only have one thing published, then that's the only thing they're going to be able to get to as well. But, you know, thinking about students that may have been absent, you may need to leave some older items published just so that they can get to absent work if they are trying to do that. Okay. On the side here too, you also can create rubrics for things. Once again, this is something that is a little bit more advanced, but if you had writing that you wanted to grade with a rubric instead of just giving them straight points, you can build rubrics, you can create a bank of rubrics, you can share rubrics between courses and things like that. So I did want to point out, especially for writing, that you do have the option to grade things by a rubric versus just giving them a straight score on something. All right, Erin, we have about half an hour left. I don't want to go too much further. Is there anything that you think that you want me to try to address in this first course here?
Nothing is coming through right now, but that could change.
Okay, that's fine. Let me then go back here. I do want to point out this immersive reader. That's something that I'm just going to touch on a little bit here. So Canvas has its own built-in screen reader. It's similar to what we have with this read and write, which we do still have this tool available where it will read a web page to students, or it will read something within a Google Doc or something like that to students. But the immersive reader itself, what it does is it takes whatever text is on that page and it opens it within a new screen. And then when you press play, it's going to read it to you. Okay, so that immersive reader then allows the student to have their screen read to them. It's, like I said, it's similar to what we have here, but it's built into Canvas itself. And that is also why, for accessibility reasons, they are wanting to make sure that the text that you put on the page, the immersive reader can read that text, which is why they don't have as many of the different fonts and things like that, because they want this tool to actually be able to work. That's also why if you're embedding an image in and you give it an alternate text, so if you say this image stands for these words, that way the immersive reader can also read the words that are on that particular page. So I wanted to make sure I showed you immersive reader. So once again, when you're looking here at a course, you are going to be building your modules with all the information students will need. And if you're 100% virtual teacher, it'll probably be by subject by day. So you'll build your math for that day, you'll build your writing for that day, you'll build your reading for that day, and then you will link from your homeroom course and take students to the module page for that particular day. Make sure that you have your module set up so that whatever you have at the top is what you want students to work on. So I would think about making sure that your modules are organized very well, and also making sure that you they're very specific on your titles here, so it's easy for students working at home to find. If you're working in a face-to-face classroom, you might have some more flexibility on how you build these modules. Maybe you have something in math that they're working on all week, and you want them in class just to do a certain part of it for that day, so you only publish part of it for Monday, and then on Tuesday when they go back, there's more to that module that's been published, because you'll be with them in that same room to help kind of guide them to which piece that you want them to work on. So the organization of it may not look the same if you are a classroom teacher face-to-face versus 100% virtual teacher. But we wanted to try to build things so that any teacher can use them. Even if you end up 100% virtual, you still have what you need, and you still have enough understanding to be able to build your day as easily as possible. Let me check here as far as adding things to a module. The only other thing that I think maybe could be used at some point is discussion if you wanted to. I did want to show you one other kind of assignment, because some of you might be thinking, but I have a lot of things created in Google, Hannah, and I don't want to have to recreate everything within Canvas itself. That is possible. If you create an assignment and you want to have students get a copy of something in Google, like the copies that were made in Google Classroom. So when you did in Google Classroom, you were assigned something where every student got a copy. That can still be done in Canvas. There is a Google integration called Google Assignments, where they've actually really tried to model Google Classroom as much as possible, because I think there's a lot of people coming from the Google Classroom world to Canvas, and this was a big ask that they wanted because this is a fairly new tool. It was just fully released a couple weeks ago. So just like you would normally do, you can type anything you want in at the top. You can put a video, you can put a slideshow, you can put a review, but where the difference is that your submission type is called an external tool, because Google Assignments, using the Google option of making a copy of something, is one of our extra external tools that's been added to Canvas. Not every school district turns on the Google Assignments, because not every school district uses Google products. So we do. So when I want to get it to an external tool, I just click Find and choose my Google Assignments. And then what you're going to see is it's going to pop up and say, okay, let's look in your drive and give students their own unique copy of whatever item that you have created. So I'm going to click Continue. It's going to bring up. This screen will probably look kind of similar to you, because they're trying to make it model what it looked like when you had a copy made for students in Google Classroom. So you're going to attach from Google Drive whatever file that you want made a copy of for students. So it can be a doc, it can be a slideshow, it can be a drawing, Google Drawing, whatever type of file it is. So this is a doc here. And you notice as soon as I click on it, each student will get a copy. And yes, I can attach more than one item there. I can give it points and a due date. I can add a rubric, all of those things that I could do with Google Classroom, and then click Create. And then that's going to force so I'm going to click Select here, and that's going to force a copy of that assignment. So let me show you what that looks like when I press Save. Google integration seems to be a little bit slow, but it's coming. Okay, so notice this is going to look very similar to how it did in Google Classroom. So as a teacher, I'm going to, when students submit their work, it's going to come up here for me to grade their work, but I don't have to leave Canvas to grade the work. Okay, the grades will still be connected to an assignment in Canvas, because this is still a Canvas assignment. It's just a Canvas assignment using Google's integration with Canvas. So when students submit work, it'll come up here and I'll be able to check over it and I'll be able to grade it and all that good stuff. For students, it's also going to look very similar to Google Classroom, where they will get a box that looks like this, except it will have their work. They'll be able to open the assignment, they'll be able to click on it and get their copy, and then they'll have a submit button that looks very similar to the Google Classroom submit button as well. So I wanted to make sure that you saw that you can still use all of your Google stuff that you created, and still, if it's something you want to have students do in a Google Doc, or you want them to create a slideshow, or you did some drag and drop activity in a slideshow, you still have the opportunity to do all of those things with that Google integration as well. We have some other tools like Nearpod and Flipgrid that can also be added as assignments. I'm not going to go into all of those now because I think I've probably given you enough information for 2 hours, but I just wanted to make sure that you saw that your Google stuff can still be utilized with that Google integration. All right, we have covered most of what I wanted, or I think pretty much all of what we had listed that we wanted to cover for this first session. We don't want to go in too much further because we want to give you time to process this, and we want to kind of save some information for our intermediate level this afternoon. But now would be a great time if you have any of those further questions, that you can type those to us in the chat and we can try to answer some more questions for you. So Erin, do you have anything further that is popping up here?
Nothing. Oh, hang on.
Okay, I'll give people a minute to think through here.
Okay, so this is the conversation that we had last night, Hannah, about you have for a Google assignment. It says, when I use the Google assignment integration, it made me make things worth points. Is there any way to add something that is not for points, just something I want them to make their copies of and complete and submit?
Okay, so that's something we'll have to add to our list of questions because this Google integration is brand new. And I have only played around with it a little bit as far as the student end goes. And I've only played around with it as far as actually giving something points as a grade. So if it's a Google assignment and we don't want to assign it a grade, we still have to do a little bit more investigating on it. It's a great question. But since this is a brand new tool within Canvas, we'll have to add that to our list. But what we can do, Erin, is on these training materials, when people click on it and go to it, we can, I know on the assignments one, so adding assignments here, there is information about the Google assignments. So, and there's also this here that Scott Wool's created that talks, that shows you some nice pictures of how that Google assignment integration looks. So what we can do is we can add that information to those documents when we have a better answer to that. So I apologize that we don't have a better answer to that right now.
I mean, for elementary purposes, you could, share the link and make it copy, right? Like, but that's a whole different ballgame. And I think it would be way too difficult for our little people.
Yeah. So what she's saying is in the assignment itself, I could put a link here that forces a copy of something in Google, but then students then will have to go back and attach what they've copied to this assignment using that file upload. I think that's a lot of steps for those younger kids.
Yeah, I agree. It's too many steps.
And the other thing is to remember, just because you've given something a score in Canvas doesn't mean that score has to show up in SIS. So, and you can even hide your grades tab from students. So if you only want them to look at their grades that you're actually giving them in SIS. Now, I think still if they go to individual assignments, they might be able to see a score. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you don't have to, if you give something a grade as a teacher, you don't have to then bring that grade over to SIS. So just keep that in mind. If you do have to give something a score using Google assignments and we can't find a way around that, then you could just choose to not bring that grade over to SIS if it's something that you don't want as a actual grade.
There is a question here about grading. Can you share more about how the grades from the Google assignments would be entered into SIS and what would need to be done manually by the teacher if it's a Google assignment?
So when you get a Google assignment and you go to grade it, and I am not sure, let me look and see if I actually have anything with student content that I can show you, because let me look here and see if I graded anything. I don't know that I have that as far as graded, because let me go back. I might actually have a Google assignment I created earlier that I played around with that I could show you with actual answers. Let's see. Let me see if I have one here. Okay, so this is one I created. Here we go. All right. So this was one that I created and I attached to Google Doc, and then I had my children, they didn't actually do this, I did this, and I had them go ahead and submit that. So that's what that looks like from the teacher end. And then if you click on a student's name, you're going to see this grading screen that should look very familiar, because this is exactly how it looked in Google Classroom when you did the grading. So it's going to have the same drop down where you can get to all the students. You put the grade in here, and my understanding is then the grade actually shows up within Canvas as well. We can, so if I click on return, all right, and that will return that grade to that kid. And then I believe then that grade also shows up within grades in Canvas, except I don't know where this assignment is on my assignments list. There, yep, there it is. So I have, yeah, so it'll show up on my grades tab here too. I have a lot of assignments built in here that I haven't actually had kids do, so I apologize that that's a little bit crazy. Oh, and now we're playing a video. Fantastic. So,
we can't hear it. It's okay.
Okay, wonderful. We're going to learn some about place value today. So that's how it looks as far as the teacher end. And then my understanding is then that integrates into the grades within Canvas as well. We can double check that for you, and we can, between now and the next session, I can play around with having my pretend students do a pretend assignment in my pretend course and see if we can double check that for you. That's the problem here, and I know Erin would agree with me, is that we are dealing with all of this on a hypothetical basis versus when we train Google Classroom, this was something we'd actually used with students before. So please give us some grace that we are working on based on the best information that we know to be true at this point in time. But these are awesome questions, and we certainly will try to give you more answers.
So the next one is from a specialist that I know, and she created like a Bitmoji classroom in slides and linked that to her multiple, or could link it to each course. But she's wondering, she would want to use it as a page, correct?
Yes.
And then she has put links on the actual Google slide presentation. Those links will transfer over into Canvas, and then all she would need to do is actually edit the Google slides with links and wouldn't have to go into Canvas to do it.
That is our understanding, right, Erin? That's your understanding as well?
I am like 98% sure I saw another technology teacher do this, and I watched her do it at the training, and it worked that way.
Okay, yeah, and that from what I've read, you know, we haven't done that. So that's what we're looking to do as tech teachers, since our homeroom page, our pages are set up differently. They're set up by grades instead of homeroom reading and so forth. So that is my understanding, is that you can take something in slides, you can embed it into a page in Canvas, and then you can update it in slides.
Yes. And then our next question asks us to please clarify the role of each elementary in-person teacher using Canvas. Not all classes have Chromebooks. We are highly aware of how little devices we have.
And we are also highly aware of how little information has been given to face-to-face teachers about the usage. That is a question that we have asked repeatedly. It is the very first question in capital letters on our list of questions that we have shared with Nick and JB.
I wish that we were privy to information just because we're doing this training, but we're not.
Yes. And I even asked Nick again when I was doing some training of the trainers yesterday, and he said, I can't give you a definitive answer by 8 o'clock the next morning. I said, okay, well, I'm going to keep asking. So just so you know. So yes, the questions, those kind of questions are great questions, and they're questions that the trainers are asking as well. We just don't have a definitive answer, and we don't want to tell you something of our opinion that then later on you guys are told something else and you say, well, Hannah and Aaron told me to do this. So we just don't want to get ourselves into that. I do think that as a classroom teacher that doesn't have devices, yes, you will use it in different ways, but how much you're expected to use it, we can't tell you that definitively. I would say my own personal opinion is you should be showing students, even if you're just using Canvas yourself to put your slideshows onto there, that you would be showing students anyways. Any more opportunities they have to see it in case we end up going virtual, I think is better. Would you agree with that, Aaron?
I definitely think it's in your best interest and your students to at least get them eyes on it if you're using your projector in your classroom or however you can go about that. My recommendation to my staff was to maybe start throwing things that they want to use for at least one subject. So like every day for reading, at least you're pulling up your slides or your vocabulary, whatever you're showing for that day, at least you're showing them how to access it on a projector or something if you have that capability.
And remember too that in our technology classrooms, we're going to, show students some things in Canvas as well. Our tech teachers are committed to using Canvas as our platform for what we're going to have students use, but for you to at least get them to that homepage and show them would be nice as well. But as far as exactly how much you're expected to use it on a daily basis, that we don't have an official answer for you yet.
Yes. The next question is another question that we have asked is about video training for parents. We are hopeful that is in the future. And it is high on the docket list of things to get done.
That's also on that page of questions that we have, because we have added on classroom homepages, we have added a tech support button. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually link to anything yet. It's going to link to a website that we hope JB is creating that gives parents tech support as far as videos or the help desk or however they're planning on making that process work. We are not privy to that yet, but I was told to put the button on the page, but I don't have a link to where it actually goes to at this time. This is not how Aaron and I like to be able to answer questions, but we are giving you what we can.
Yes.
Sorry.
The next one is about any specific training for just virtual teachers. I know
that's also on our list, Aaron.
Yes, it is. Personally, I have one virtual teacher per grade level in my building. So my plan when we go back for teacher work days is to train them separately from in-person teachers. I don't know how that works for other buildings.
But we don't know if they're going to, we think it would be best for them to, get all the kindergarten virtual teachers and train them and all the first grade. I mean, that, in our opinion, would be a great way to go about this, but we are not the ones making those decisions or designing those trainings. So, we can try as the Canvas, there is a Canvas trainer within each building. So they can certainly be a resource to you, but they're still learning this as well. So please give them, cut them a little slack too. But, we would certainly like there to be some very specific virtual teacher training. We just don't know of anything that is officially scheduled. And Nick has said he would like that as well, but he has not had, official go ahead of creating that. My timer going off again. That was my 5-minute warning.
Another question was about pre-designed homepages and content that's being written will be released to teachers.
Okay, so as far as homepage, this afternoon session, I'm actually going to show you how to go into the Commons and to get the homepage stuff that we have created so far. This homepage has been through, I don't even know how many versions at this point. It's a very large number. And it had to be completely redesigned last week when information Nick thought was true didn't turn out to be true. So some of the ways we had set it up weren't going to work anymore. So what we have in the Commons should be enough to get you started on it, but we would like to add more to it in the Commons first, or after that. But we do have some stuff that we will work on this afternoon to at least get you started. So if you want to be able to pull in this page, if you want to be able to edit this page and add your own links or add your own designs, we will go through how to do that. As far as the courses, so the content that's been created for reading, the content that's being created for math and science and social studies, all those subject areas, that's up to the curriculum coordinators of how that is going to be released. They've given Aaron and I some content that we can show as demos this afternoon, but it's not content that is available just out there, because once again, they're trying to figure out, are we going to do this as blueprint courses where we're able to push that content into teachers' courses, and can we make that work? Or are we going to put that content out into the Commons and teachers will pull it in? So when I asked yesterday, I said, is there anything that everybody can grab at this point in time? And they said, not yet. So
there are no more questions coming in at the moment.
it must be because we've answered everything. They're not confused at all. Right, Aaron? That's what we're gonna go with.
Everyone feels 100% confident.
Yes, everybody is great. Okay.
Great job, Hannah.
Sure. If only that were that easy. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a little wave shout out. Thank you for joining us and for coming early to be with us and for asking great questions. The things that we don't have answers to yet, we promise that we are asking, and we will continue bugging the people that make those decisions until we get those answers for you. If you join us again at 12, we're going to go more into actually designing a homepage and looking at the content that's already been created and how you could then make that content your own and assign that to your students. So thank you again. Thank you, Aaron, for all of your help. You're wonderful.
You too.
And this will be recorded. I don't know how long it's going to take for WebEx to process the recording. So just keep in mind that that link may not be available for a few hours, maybe not even till tomorrow, depending on how long WebEx takes to process the recording. But it will be posted, and this afternoon too. So if you feel like this morning, like that's all that you can handle for one day, and then you want to, come back a different day and watch the level 2 recording or the second recording this afternoon, that's fine. However works best for you. But thank you for joining us, and we hope to see some of you again at 12.
Yes.